Hey, it's Aaron, and today I want to talk about Volkswagen. Somebody asked me, there's no name attached to this, so I'm not sure who it is, just a username that is not a real name. So I'll just call it anonymous. Somebody asked why Volkswagen struggles so much to sell vehicles in the US. And it's a really good question. And it's a question that applies to a bunch of different automakers, mostly imports, but also even some of the US automakers, the traditionally US. And the answer is usually the same across the board. The market changes, and sometimes the companies don't change fast enough to keep up. In Volkswagen's case, though, it's a little bit different, and it's something that a lot of the import brands deal with, especially in the standard vehicle market. When you get into luxury, it's a little different. So in Volkswagen's case, Volkswagen tried to make a new comeback with the ID Buzz, and it's flopping. The reason it's flopping is, well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. The biggest one is it's just too expensive for the average person to justify buying it. It doesn't have enough range and other things to make up for the fact that it costs so much. There are way better options. So it was sold, the people that bought it mostly bought it for nostalgia. And that's a pretty limited market. So nostalgia machines are usually subsets of a bigger market that the machine is aiming for. So if you look at Ford, who is really good at nostalgia right now, most of their nostalgia-driven sales are subsets of, say, the Bronco Sport, and so on. To a lesser extent, Jeep has done this with the Gladiator and Wrangler models, doing a little bit of that, and a few others. You can name them all, there's a bunch of them, but they're always subsets. They're never the main point of the model. The main point of the model being nostalgia is a bad idea because your sales just aren't going to be big enough. There aren't enough people with deep enough pockets to just throw money at, I want to look like I live in 1985. That's just not a thing. Volkswagen's other problem has just been kind of lackluster appeal. Volkswagen's mainstream models are pretty middling. They're good vehicles, but they're middling in the market. In other words, the other options in that same segment are usually as good or better, so there's really no specific reason to choose the Volkswagen. And that's true with most of their mainstream models. So we're talking the Jetta, Tiguan, Taos, and so on. Even the Atlas, which is a great three-row big vehicle, has really good competition from other makers like Subaru and Ford and Chevy and lots of options out there. So it's really hard it's really been really hard for Volkswagen to gain any kind of market share here. And that's been true for as long as I've been writing about automotive, and I'm in pretty close to 15 years now doing this. And it's been true for much longer than that. It's been true since basically the Beetle. When the Beetle came out, it hit a peak, did really, really awesome, was selling like hotcakes for quite a while, and then poof, Volkswagen went like this. And then other things that affected the Dieselgate controversy and a bunch of other stuff have just kind of whittled away at Volkswagen on the whole in the US market. And so it's a thing that a lot of automakers struggle with. Volkswagen is not alone in this. There are others. We've seen Fiat struggle. We saw for quite a while the South Korean, so Hyundai and Kia, they struggled until they finally hit that groove, and now they're doing really well. There are a bunch of companies. Toyota struggled for a while. Datsun did really well and then started to kind of go bleh, and then we saw the Nissan name take over, and then they've done pretty okay. They've been hit and miss for a little while, but they've done pretty okay. That company's problems as far as finances and other things, those are totally unrelated to the market because they're selling really well. At least they were for quite a while. And what they're going through now in terms of their sales and market share can be seen as a hiccup if the company can financially recover. But anyway, most of the struggles that we've seen with especially these import brands are almost always related to just not quite understanding what the market in the US wants. And then definitely, especially with the Japanese brands, not understanding that the market changes a lot quickly. So what's cool this year might not be so cool next year. Volkswagen has just never really found that groove. They hit a mark with the Beetle way back in the day, and then they've just kind of been since then. Ups and downs, lots of ups and downs. They just haven't found their spot in the market. And to be honest, most of the ones that are doing really well, it's because they have a spot. They have a consumer and a vibe and a I don't know, an overall kind of point that makes them what a writer would call a character. It's a character. So when you think of Ford or Subaru or Mazda or any of these companies, they have a thing that you know what it is. You may not be able to say it, but you know exactly what that is. Volkswagen just doesn't have that. And they've never really had that in the US, not since the Beetle. They've tried to rekindle it, they've tried to find it, but they just haven't. So basically, that's the problem Volkswagen has run into. And I don't know if they're going to find it or not. It's totally up to them. Anyway, yeah, that's my answer. I know it's long-winded, but anyway, that was a really good question. And I had fun kind of figuring out how to answer this. If you've got a question, the fastest way to get to me is to join my members area and ask it there, or respond to this video and ask it. Members get their questions pushed to the top of the queue. You can also find me other places. I'm all over social media and other stuff. Just tag or DM to make sure I see it. And yeah, ask your question. I'll do my best to answer. All right. This has been Aaron. Talk to you again soon.